Good morning, all. Welcome and thank you. My name is Tim Kinnerup. I'm with QCM Technologies. I head up our sales and operations area. Um, and we have a large group coming in, so I'm not waiting very long here to get started because we have a full packed hour. A couple housekeeping duties here before we start. The speakers will be off. So as you have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat, and Chris will do his best to answer when he has the breaks or along the way or towards the end, however that comes across. So feel comfortable to do that. We are recording this session, and that affords us two things. If people come in late, or later on you want it, please reach out to your favorite QCM contact that got you here today, and they'll get you a copy of that. As well as, don't forget, if you enjoy this, and we hope you will, we know you will enjoy it for educational, and if you feel like it drives you to the next steps, please reach out to any of your local QCM contact and set up a personal meeting one-on-one. We'd be glad to host that. Um, I have known Chris Johnson, our presenter and speaker founder today of Tomorrow Today, for a very long time, local Phoenix guy. He is a technologist and a serial entrepreneur from his initially founding of TerraLever to the merger of Lane TerraLever to now the founding of Tomorrow Today. So I know you're going to love this, and I'm excited for you too. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Chris Johnson and let him take you down this journey.
Thanks, Tim. Tim, can you see me? Tim, you're on
I
mute.
can. I went to mute, sir.
Okay. Yeah, and you can see the presentation. Just want to make sure everyone can see
I
this.
can see the presentation, and you're
All right. Well, let's get started. One housekeeping item. I'm not going to be watching the chat, but I will be watching Q&A. So if you have a specific question, just pop it in there. I'll do my best to answer questions in context because I find that's a lot more useful to everybody. So this is a session that's really aiming to bridge a gap that we find in most companies that we work with. And that's the gap between a lot of excitement about AI and what everyone is saying it can do, because it's a topic that does not lack hype. I'm sure you all know that. But the gap is typically from there to practically, what is this stuff and how should I be using it in our business? So this is, I promise, a hype-free session that's going to be focused on a practical understanding of where AI is today and where it's headed, and some real-world examples for how you should be using it in business today. So our objectives in this session are, we're going to just start really just talking about giving you a broad understanding of AI concepts and really the generative AI space, just what this stuff is, how it works, and what it's used for. But most of this, I'm going to be going through and actually doing live demonstrations of real business uses. So you can see how we work with generative AI or ChatGPT in this example, how we prompt, the kind of things that we do with it, and then we're quickly going to be moving towards more advanced uses. So you can start to see some of the more advanced capabilities that we have access to today. We're going to wrap it up with a quick just walk away with how you should be looking at integrating AI into your business. And hopefully by watching me go through some of these live demos, you're going to walk away with some realistic ideas that you can use this afternoon if you wanted to in your work and in your business. So let's just start by level setting on Gen AI or generative AI, of which ChatGPT is a great example. In this space, most of what we've been talking about and most of the hype are around large language models. So large language models are models that have what they all claim, these are all called frontier general large language models. Frontier because they're the biggest and the most capable. General because they have general knowledge in them. They all claim to have all human knowledge in every language available in them. It's kind of hard to get your mind around. But each one of these are very capable models. Probably the most widely used that we see today is OpenAI's GPT models. So when you log into ChatGPT, by default, you're using ChatGPT 4.0. That came out about 2 years ago. And they keep updating along the way. So it's way more capable than it was 2 years ago. But that's what most people are using. What a lot of people don't know is that there's other models that you can be using inside of ChatGPT. So you have O3, which is called a reasoning model, and we'll go into what that is later, but that's more for really deeper thinking, problem solving, strategy, and is a very capable model. You have O4 Mini, which is another reasoning model. It's kind of a preview of what's coming in their next generation of reasoning models. And then you have 4.1, which is soon to replace 4.0. And it is a very capable model. And its distinction is that you can give it a lot more information than you can a ChatGPT 4.0. And we'll talk about that. Outside of the OpenAI world, there's still a lot of other capable models. Anthropic has Claude Sonnet and Opus 4, really known right now for being excellent at writing code. It's also a very good writer. And we have Google has their Gemini platform, which last week they finally took out of a research preview. And 2.5 Pro, actually maybe my favorite overall model right now. Doesn't do all the things that ChatGPT can do, but is an incredibly capable model that has built-in reasoning with it. And then you have Grok. So Elon Musk created Grok out of XAI. What's unique about Grok are two things. One is the rest of these models have what we would consider to be called guardrails. And these are safety guardrails, and they're trying to make sure that people aren't using these powerful tools for ill intent. Well, Elon Musk is a proponent of free speech and anti-censorship, which some of you may know. And he thinks that by putting significant guardrails on these models, it holds them back, and it's a form of censorship. So Grok just has less guardrails on it. You can do things in Grok that you can't do with the others. Early on in the Grok life cycle, in Grok 2.0, you could go to Grok and say, "Hey, I need some help making a pipe bomb." And it would actually start walking you down the path of doing that. The rest of these models have never done that. But it's still a very powerful model. The other thing that it has is real-time access to X.com, formerly Twitter, has access to really, really recent data. So companies that or people that are concerned with the stock market and wanting to know something's happening right away can be a great source for that. And then Meta. Meta is Instagram, WhatsApp, Facebook, Threads. They built a frontier model for themselves, and they integrated it into all those platforms. And they use it for better targeting content in your feeds, to help advertisers better target advertising, to help advertisers better create ads and content. And then what they did is they released it to the world in open source. So Llama, they have a bunch of different size models, but you could take a smaller model of Llama and put it on your laptop. You could put it in your own server architecture in the cloud. So companies that are really, really concerned about the privacy and security of their data are opting to go with a hosted Llama model in their own environment because nobody else for sure has access to that data. Next in this world, we have image generative AI. And this goes two ways. One is taking a prompt and generating an image. And ChatGPT did an update about 2 months ago that really now can create exceptional images. Gemini can do it. Midjourney has long been the creative standard in there. It's got a bit of a learning curve, but you have a lot more creative control over it. And Grok, if you want to create slightly not safe for work images. But the other side of image generative AI is you can give these models a photo or an image, and it will deeply understand what's in that photo. So you could take a picture of your living room, and it will understand all the furniture in there, the lighting, the carpet, the colors, what's on the tables. And then once it has that understanding, you can say, "Oh, now I want to redecorate this living room to be mid-century modern. What should I do?" And it'll tell you, put an Eames chair in the corner, get rid of this table. You need a wood table here. Change your wall coverings to this. You need this kind of a light fixture, and you can start chatting with that understanding. But in a business world, you could take, let's just say, strategically, you're drawing a strategic flywheel on a whiteboard, and you're working as a team on it. You could take a photo of that flywheel when you're done, give it to ChatGPT. It will understand that it's a flywheel. It'll understand all the different components, right? And what the words say, but what they are. And then you can start working with ChatGPT on making it better. What are holes in this flywheel? How could I make it stronger? What should I be considering? And it can become a really good strategy partner. And then we have audio and video generative AI. So audio, on the audio side, the standard for a while has been 11 labs. With 11 labs, you can give it a sample of somebody's voice and a transcript, and it'll create audio that sounds exactly like this person. And so this is in the world of, say, finance, banking. There's a lot of fraud going on right now. In fact, about 3 weeks ago, my banker called me on a Monday and said, "Hey, Chris, sorry I didn't call you back on Saturday." And I said, "Scott, I didn't call you on Saturday." He goes, "No, no, it was definitely you. It sounded just like you." I said, "Did it come from this phone number, my cell phone?" He goes, "No, that was weird. It was a different number." And I said, "Okay, well, if I ever call you, it'll be from this number. And if it's not me." So it's what we like to tell people in your family and close group of friends, have a secret word, because the technology exists and it's really easy to do today to create an audio sample of your kid saying they've been kidnapped, and then somebody a fraudster on the will take the phone and say they're holding your kid hostage. But if they don't know that secret word, you'll know it's fake. OpenAI has a great speech API that you can code against. And what's unique about what they have today is that it's instantly responsive and you can interrupt it. If we've ever interacted, and I'm sure we all have interacted with um, a AI over the phone, there's a hallmark 2 to 3 second delay in a chat, and that's very inhuman. Doesn't feel human to you, and you instantly know it's an AI. They have a real-time speech API that immediately responds. I'll demo that for you today, so you can see how it works. And you can interrupt it, which is nice. So it feels more conversational. And this voice space is moving very quickly this year. We expect by the end of the year to be able to work with voices that you could talk with on a phone that you would have no idea it's an AI. In the video space, Runway was first mover in this space, but Veo 3 is Google's model. You might have seen some of these in social media. It creates exceptional video now with voices, sound effects, all of it. You can create about an 8 second video, and then you can stitch those together. This is really disrupting Hollywood right now, because a Hollywood blockbuster costs about $5,000 a second to create a blockbuster movie. AI generated video, which is of the same quality at this point, costs 5 cents a second. So they're not going to be able to ignore those efficiencies. Sora is OpenAI's video generation model. It is very good. We like to talk about, there's an app out there called Descript that uses AI, and it's meant for content creators. But I could take this webinar and put it into Descript. It'll transcribe it for me, and then I can hit a button saying, remove all the filler words, all the ers, the ums. It'll go through, edit all that out of the transcript, and then regenerate the video and the audio, and you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. I could actually edit the transcript and say something completely different. It would regenerate the video and audio, and you would never know. Really powerful tool. And if you like music, there's an app called Suno. You can go on there and text to create music. It's fun to play around with. And now we're seeing AI getting integrated with everything, generative AI in particular. So HubSpot, Salesforce have their own generative AI where you're actually chatting with the data that you have, and that can be powerful. Microsoft has Copilot. I'm not the biggest fan of it. The advantage of Copilot is that it has access to your files and your email. And so you can chat with that. But as a core model to do things with, we still generally point people to one of those frontier models because they're a lot more powerful today. But you're seeing thousands of apps now show up saying, to help you create a quiz or help you do this. And I think we just like to counsel people to say, think about whether or not you could do what that app's saying it'll do for you for 20 bucks a month. Could you actually just do that in ChatGPT? Because there's a lot of companies that are just putting a very light veneer over one of these frontier models to accomplish what they want. All right, so why do we care about this stuff? This is a report that came out just under a year ago from Thomson Reuters. And they went out and spoke with thousands of professionals who were using AI in their work. And their conclusion was that by the end of 24, these professionals were going to be saving 200 hours a year. So about 10% of their time. But they went on to forecast that by the end of 2025, that number was going to be 400 hours. And by the end of 2026, it was going to be 600 hours, 30% of professionals' time. So we clearly can't ignore it. And what we have to understand is that in order for us to realize the benefit of what these tools can provide, we have to both learn how to use them well, but we also have to fundamentally rethink the way we approach work. We don't use ChatGPT when we get stuck on something. We think about how we might use ChatGPT to do the first 80% of our work. And then we, as strategic humans who know our customers, our brand, our values, can do that last 20% of the work. But in doing that, we can save hours every week. All right, so let's dig into ChatGPT in particular. It's the most widely used general large language model. They were first to market in November of 2022 with their 3.5 model, and they've been rapidly evolving it and adding features and capabilities since. It's presented as a simple chat interface. So most people at this point that I talk to have at least tried it out. But you pull it up, and that's actually kind of one of the problems about learning how to use ChatGPT is there's no instruction manual. It looks like Google. So a lot of people start chatting, they want to know something about the world, and that's not really what it's for. What it's meant is to take context and data that you give it to create something for you. And it just takes time to learn that. The way that you learn it is by using it. And then behind it is an API, an application programming interface, that you can integrate with. And this is where you can start building tools and automations that drive tremendous speed and tremendous efficiency inside of organizations. A lot of the work that we do is taking process and figuring out what processes could be leveraging AI to do intermediary steps. And then we call it human in a loop. We actually put the work that AI does in front of the expert to evaluate, do a light edit, and then move on to the next step of that process. All right, so how do these large language models work? Well, just like their name, language models, they're wholly really just concerned about words and language. They have built models with trillions of words and the understanding about how these words relate to each other in language. And even the most advanced platforms and scientists in this area cannot tell you today how intelligence has come out of that understanding, but it does. They're still trying to figure it out. So how does it work? Well, what it does is you give it a prompt, you give it context and information, and as it starts generating language in a response, it's predicting what that next word is. So the example I like to use, this isn't interactive, but I like to say like, hey, if I went to you and said, hey, tonight, do you want to go grab a, well, there's a lot of words that could be the next word. It could be a drink. It could be a sandwich, a meal. It could be a beer. It could be a lot of things, but based on what it knows about me and the prompt that I gave it in context, it generates a list of high probability words. And then it picks one of the highest probability words. This is called non-determinism. It doesn't always pick the highest. And that's why you can give the same prompt to ChatGPT 10 times and you will get 10 slightly different outputs. But it predicts it predicts whatever, it picks that one word and it drops it down. And then it takes everything that I've given it and everything it's generated, puts that back into the model, and then picks the next word. And it does this over and over and over again until it's done. This is what they refer to as inference. This is why NVIDIA is one of the most valuable companies in the world right now, because it's their GPUs that are powering this inference. It's why in Arizona, I think there's something like 15 data centers planned. We have enough power for 2 of them. There's an arms race amongst all these companies to build up as much computing power and actual real power to power these systems so they can continue advancing. All right, ChatGPT in particular has what's called a token limit. This is referred to as a context window. And this is the amount of information that you can give it and it can generate in one chat session. So think of a token as a fraction of a word. It's about 75% ratio. So it's about 90,000 words or roughly 300 pages of a book. It's still a lot. But be warned, if you get to the end of that in a chat session, it's game over. It will not do any more for you. So I'm going to show you some ways that you can manage that. Most people don't hit it, but if you're creating, think about you're creating long documents and you're iterating on those over time, those add up and then they stop it there. I have an asterisk there because the 4.1 model that I mentioned earlier is that context window is about 750,000 words. So it's meant to be handling longer chat sessions. All right. So one detail I want to go through here, which is relatively new to the world, certainly within the last year of generative AI, is that in all these models, you have core models. So ChatGPT 4.0 is a core model, or 4.1 is a core model. And then you have reasoning models. And this is where they're actually doing deeper thought on what you're asking it to do. So in a core model, you might prompt it and create some version of a document. And then you might ask it to evaluate that document and give you ideas on how to make it better. And you say, yeah, go ahead, do those things. And then it generates a new version of that document. And then you say, well, now I need to create an outline for a PowerPoint presentation. And it'll create the outline for you. I'm like, all right, well, now let's put content into those slides. So that's how the typical usage of a core model is, that you start with something and then you build on it over time to create something. A reasoning model, what it does is you tell it what you want and you give it all the context it needs to do it. It might come back and ask you some clarifying questions about things that it thinks it needs to know to do the job for you. And then it creates its own work plan. There might be 10 steps in the background. And then it'll think on it and iterate, and it'll go through those steps. And what you end up getting takes longer, think 2 to 3 minutes. But what you end up getting is much more complete and thoughtful. So if you think about core models or standard LLMs or the default of how you're using ChatGPT, great for writing, good at finding patterns and data sets. It is predicting the next word, can provide really direct answers. So it's faster. And so it's not going to have the explanations or logic for how it got there, but it's going to get you what you want. So good for content generation, summarization, taking transcripts from meetings is really useful. Having chatbots that are loaded with data to be able to provide that intelligence. Really, these models have all human language in every language available, so they're exceptionally good at translation today. But the limitation is it's not going to go, you're the person that's driving the multi-step logic, and it's not going to go find unique solutions for you. Reasoning models are more for solving complex multi-step problems. Think of it as being like a strategy partner. Can be really good at that. Really good at doing things like research for you, which we'll talk about. It runs through its own chain of thought, and it's slower, but faster than if you were to be the person that was driving that logic. Really good at math, puzzles, analyzing images, helping you make decisions, and it'll show you how it got there so you can see the reasoning it went through. And the limitation is a little bit slower. I will tell you, reasoning models tend to, it's called hallucinate more. Hallucination is code for make stuff up. So all these models have some amount of hallucination in them. And part of it is that randomness of picking the word, and part of it's just the way that they're built. And reasoning models tend to hallucinate more, so you have to pay more attention to what it's creating for you. So this is in the ChatGPT world, the model breakdown, the core models that you can use. You have 4.0, which is the default. We've talked about that a lot. There is a 4.0 mini, so if you just want like a really quick task and you want it to be fast, pop into mini and you can do that. 0.3 is their core reasoning model that we talked about. There is an 0.3 Pro, and basically all they've done with 0.3 Pro, it's the same model. They just give it more time and more computing power so it can go even deeper for you. And then 4.1 is that larger context window that's very capable, just like 4.0, but you can actually generate much longer, deeper documents and whatever you're building in it. All right, so what can it do? Well, first, here's the licensing model, which you get questions about a lot. You can just go use it for free, and a lot of people are just using it for free. If you're doing that, you only have access to the core model of 4.0. And it's more likely if you start doing heavy use, it'll tell you to take a timeout and come back in 3 hours. If you're paying for it at 20 bucks a month as an individual, you get access to all of those except for 0.3 Pro that I went through, and you get about 5 times the usages as the free. Teams is what most companies are signing up for, because you can manage licensing like you would Office 365. You can buy seats and assign those to people and take them away. But you also have the ability to build what are called custom GPTs. And I'll go into that in a little bit here, but it's custom GPTs are, think of them as a little purpose-built tool that other people in the company can use, and they don't have to know how to prompt to use it. And if you really want to go all in, Pro is 200 bucks a month. You have pretty much unlimited access to everything, plus you get access to the newest, latest, greatest as soon as it comes out. All right, inside there's a search functionality. They have their search engine to go out and find information for you. We talked about you can give it an image and have it analyze it. This can be good for things like even dashboards. looking at data, take a screenshot of it and give it to ChatGPT. It'll understand that data in there, and then you can start chatting with what that understanding is. It can generate images. It's fun to play with. Underlying this, and actually the rest of those models that the rest of the companies we went through, is a concept called advanced data analysis. And when I describe the way that a large language model works of picking the next word, that doesn't sound like something that's good at math, does it? And it turns out large language models are terrible at math. What they are really good at is writing code. So when you give ChatGPT an Excel spreadsheet and you start asking questions about that data, what it does is it translates what you want into Python code, writes that code real time, and then runs it in their environment, gets the output, gives that back to ChatGPT to interpret. And I'll show a quick example of that today. Voice, we talked about a lot, but especially if you have the app on your phone for ChatGPT, the voices are really exceptional. And then GPTs, it's the pre-built role, context, meaning data, and a defined output that you can publish as a small tool that others can use very easily. And then they have two what are called AI agents. And if you hear the term AI agent out there, what it means is that's AI that will go out into the world and do something for you. One is called operator. And what operator will do is you can give it a login to a website. It'll actually, in their environment, load up a browser and you can watch it happen. It'll log in and take whatever action that you ask it to do on that website. So that can be really powerful. Simple example is you can have it go make a dinner reservation for you. A more complex example might be running a Dun& Bradstreet report. But I'm going to show a pretty advanced example of that, and you'll see what it can do. The other agent they have is called Deep Research. And Deep Research is an agent that will go out to the web and do really, really deep searches for information that it thinks it needs to know to do the job. It might look at 100 websites. It evaluates the quality and how reputable the sites are. And then it finds that information and comes in and builds your report with citations so you can see where that information came from. So when you combine O3 as a research model with deep research, it might take 20 minutes for it to actually go out and do what it's going to do for you. But what you end up getting back is exceptional in terms of how thorough, complete, and thoughtful the output is. So if you ever thinking about going out and researching a topic, or I was actually talking to somebody this morning about going out and finding um, uh, good prospects, give it a good prompt and talk about who are good prospects for you and the quality of them. It will go out to the web and it might spend 30 minutes going out and qualifying different companies to give you a list that would be good prospects. All right, ChatGPT is not great at everything. We talked about hallucinations. It literally does not know when it's wrong. So it's very confident it's right all the time. And this is why generative AI today is not a fire and forget weapon. Anything that you're going to create with AI, you as a human need to be reviewing it, validating facts and figures. In the case of a reasoning model, looking at how it got to the conclusions it got to validate it. It's right most of the time. But that one time it's not could be devastating. So always trust but verify before you start using it. And these tools aren't particularly useful unless you know how to use them. So we're going to spend the rest of the time doing that. We have no open questions right now. So I'm just going to hop into ChatGPT. So the first example that I like to go through is a hiring example. And in this example, what I want to introduce is that anytime you're going to be doing anything of significance inside of, oh, I got a question from Zona. How do you tell ChatGPT that it's wrong? Yeah, it's really easy. You just say, hey, that's not right. And then it always agrees with you and then goes back and most of the time will actually fix its own problems. But it won't argue with you. So don't be afraid. Okay. So anytime you're going to be doing anything of significance, and we're going to start here by creating a really good job posting. We give it three things. We give it a role, and is a role is telling ChatGPT who it is, not who you are, who you want it to be. And what we're doing is we're taking this general large language model and we're starting to dial in the area that we're going to be playing with in that model so that those probabilities end up being more accurate that we talked about. So in this role, we're saying you're the world's I should say, leading technical recruiter with 10 years experience working with digital agencies to find and hire the most amazing talent. You excel at creating enticing job descriptions that drive immense interest and incite the best to apply. And then here's a little bit of a trick that I like to use. Then I say, tell me more about this. And now what it's going to do is it's going to tell me what somebody who is really exceptional at this role does. And if you remember, I told you it takes everything that I've given it and everything it's generated and puts that back into the model to do the next task. What I'm doing here is creating a very complete role, and very slowly. So while we're here, when I talk about those other models, if you just click up here, this is where you can see them. A lot of people don't know this. So here's where you go to the reasoning model. Here's O3 Pro, Mini, High. 4.5 is a research preview that's really good at writing, but it's going away in July, so don't get used to it. And then 4.1 and 4.1 Mini. So I'm using 4.1 right now. So now I've created a really deep role, and now I'm going to give it the other two parts of my prompt. And the first one is context. And think of context as giving it the information it needs to do its job. Think of ChatGPT as the smartest, fastest, most capable intern in human history, who knows nothing about you, who knows nothing about who your company, doesn't have the information it needs to do its job. So I have to give it that information. So you're recruiting for this position, senior digital media specialist for LT, 100-person, not general contracting. This is a agency in Phoenix, Arizona, an exciting position, lots of growth opportunities. And then I have to give the benefits, right? Because we want to have that in our posting. And then I also give it output. And so output is what you want it to do. And here you can put voice and tone. You can put instructions for what you want the output to be in terms of structure. In this case, I'm saying I want you to use your deep experience in this category to create the best possible job description for this role. I'm going to kick it off. We will use this job description in our job posting, so let's drive the applicant to action. And now, because I took the time to do a nice structure prompt, what I get the first time is very, very good. I'm actually going to stop this really quick because 4.1 is being slow. I'm going to go to 4.0. Go here. You can always edit your prompts, which a lot of people don't know. And this is really useful because you have the ability to go back and change something. This is a way that you can avoid getting to the end of that context window we talked about. Because when I change the prompt here, what it does is it creates two separate chats that I can go back and forth between. So my context window got longer. Do this in 4.0. Hopefully it's faster. It is. It has knowledge in the model about what this role does, so I didn't have to give it to it, and it's very good. And that's because there's tens of thousands of postings out there for this role that are in the model. There's qualifications, and then why you love it here. And so let's just say I forgot a benefit. I can go back up to my original prompt, and I can just add a benefit, right? You know, daily yoga classes. And I'll send that. And you'll see, even though I just asked for another benefit, it's going to create a slightly different version. And that's that non-deterministic little bit of randomness that's in this model.
Chris, a question, how do you work with sensitive data? I believe ChatGPT terms claims it stores user input to train its model.
It's a good question. It comes up often. If you are using ChatGPT Teams, they do not use your interactions or your data to train their model. In fact, it says right down here at the bottom, OpenAI doesn't use Tomorrow Today workspace data to train its models. In the plus version that you can pay for $20, you can turn that on and off. In Teams, it's not even an option. So when you buy licenses for your company, they don't have the ability to even turn that on. So that dramatically lowers that risk. You do have the ability to use Microsoft through Azure. You can you can hit through an API that model, so you can build your own chatbot to go against that model. And it's hosted in Azure, but I'll tell you, all of OpenAI is also hosted in Azure. So I think it's pretty much the same thing. If you're really, really concerned about it, you have to go to an open source model like a Llama. But I believe the risk to be incredibly low, even though we're going against a public API right now. So let's see, our daily yoga session showed up. That's great. And then if you go back up here, you can see that I can go back and forth between my different outputs. All right, so let's just say now I'm happy with it. So now what I have is I have knowledge about this position that's in this chat. So I'm just going to take it a little bit further. Now I want you to create an evaluation matrix that we can use to evaluate incoming resumes. Use a weighted score and show it to me in a table. And it very quickly does it. It goes through and says, here's how you can consistently evaluate resumes as they come through. And then it tells me how to calculate it. Now, of course, I would want to be able to go through and probably dial that into how I would look at evaluating people for this position. But we don't have time for that today. So we're going to go on to the next step. Now that I have a way to score and all this knowledge is built in here, I'm going to say, awesome, thanks. Here's a resume from a candidate that just applied. Well, let's evaluate it. So let me go here. And now I'm going to give it a resume. So you can give all kinds of files to ChatGPT, spreadsheets, PowerPoints, PDFs, Word documents. You can give it a lot and it will understand it. Now it's reading the document, analyzing it. Now it's doing the evaluation. And it's being very slow, of course. This is usually incredibly quick. Go here. I'm going to go to just 04 mini because I know it'll be fast. You don't have to sit here and watch it work. So it's telling me what it's finding inside of the resume, and then it scores it for me. So 81 out of 100. That's great. Tells me why it gave these scores. Saying, all right, that's over our threshold. I'm not sure how it knows it's threshold. It's making that up, so that's a hallucination. But I can at least take this information and say, okay, this is great. I actually want to bring this person in for an interview. And then it writes a nice professional email that I could work with and edit. But this is that 80% that I can do the final 20% on. I can take this out, copy and paste it to an email, fix the things that's actually my availability, not its made up availability, and send that email off. But let's say that I actually know this candidate's younger, and I want to send an email that's going to land a little bit better when they get it. So this is good, but Jared's a Gen Zer. Can you write it in a more appropriate tone? I hope you're doing awesome. You got some emojis. Data-driven vibes really stood out. So shoot me if I got this email. But it does do what I ask. And so a lot of times people say, I can tell when I get an email that it was written by AI. And we're learning what default AI just sounds like. I can pretty much do it too. But if what you do is you give it voice and tone guidance of how you want it to write, it won't sound like generic AI. A cool thing that you can do is set up a role as an expert copywriter and copywriting analyst, and then give it 10 examples of emails that you wrote that you think sound just like you. Give it 20, whatever you want to do. And then in your instructions or output, that last part of the prompt, say, I'd like you to deeply analyze these emails and write me a very detailed paragraph that I can hand to somebody else so they'll write just like me. And it'll create a paragraph that describes your voice and tone that's uniquely yours. And then you can go up here under your account settings and go to customize ChatGPT. And where it says, what traits should ChatGPT have? Just say, whenever you write emails for me, write using this guidance. And from that point on, when it writes emails, that's what it'll do for you. And it won't sound like AI wrote it. That was just a quick little aside. All right. And now I'm getting to the end of this, but I have all this knowledge that's been built into this chat. So I have the job posting, I have how to score it, I have this candidate's resume, how they scored, pros and cons, things I'd want to know. So I can say, just give me 5 thoughtful interview questions. And because that knowledge is built in here, I get 5 really good questions, and it tells me why they're there. So this is how you use ChatGPT. You give it context and knowledge, and then you build on that to do the tasks that you want to do. This is a really good example of what I would call individual efficiency. So individual efficiency is simply using the tool well to drive efficiency in the task I'm trying to do. At Tomorrow Today, we talk about another kind of efficiency, which is organizational efficiency. And this is creating apps and systems that leverage the OpenAI API to do this work to dramatically speed up processes. So in that case, you could build a system that the human still has to write the job posting, but once that goes out to an Indeed.com, the minute a resume comes in, AI grabs it. It scores it. And if it's above a threshold, sends an email to the hiring manager saying, hey, we have a good candidate for you this position. Here's the resume. Here's how they scored. Here are the pros and cons. Do you want to interview this candidate, yes or no? Very quickly, the hiring manager can look at that and click yes or no. If they click yes, then the system looks at the hiring manager's calendar, finds 3 open interview slots, generates the professional email, and sends it to the candidate. And the candidate can pick one of those slots, and you could be talking to that candidate the next day. Maybe put a little bit of delay in there so it's not freakishly fast, but that's an example of taking a hiring process that might take 2 or 3 weeks to interviewing your first candidate to being able to interview that candidate the next day, which will likely get you better talent faster. That's an example of organizational efficiency driven by automation. All right, let's go on to our next demo. The next thing I want to show you is that concept of GPTs. So GPTs, when I mentioned them before, they are basically, it allows me to embed a prompt and data in there, and then publish it as a tool. So this is a really simple one that we built. And when you're inside of it, this is what it looks like. This is configuring it. So you can give it an image, you give it a name, you give it a description, and my prompt goes here under instructions. So this is an HR chatbot. So I'm giving it a role, basically saying you're an HR leader, you're an OD consultant, you have deep knowledge of translating things to employees at large, right? And your role is to provide information about the company, policies, procedures, benefit, and culture. And then I'm giving it 3 documents. These are all PDFs, but I'm telling it what's in them so it knows how to use these based on the questions it's getting. So I'm giving you the LT employee handbook. This is what every employee signs in this company on their first day with all the policies and procedures that are in there. The new hire handbook, which is a softer, this is how we work, our values, our history, where the bathrooms are, this kind of information. And then the benefits guide, straight from our benefits provider for this company. So the benefits guide is basically health, dental, vision, pet, all those benefits that are in there. And then I give it some guidance on voice and tone. If there's uncertainty about a question, ask for clarification. And then you can put in conversation starters, because again, this is now a tool. This is not to prompt against. You don't have to know how to prompt to use it. So I can give it some starters, and then I can upload up to 20 documents, up to 50 megs each. So you can give it a lot of it. You can give it Excel files. You can give it code. You can give it lots of information. I can choose what model I want it to be using underneath. This actually just came out last week, the ability to do that. And then I can turn on and off the capabilities. So maybe I don't want them generating images or writing Python in here for me. And then when I'm done, I say update, I publish it. And when I publish it, everybody within my GPT Teams environment, again, not to be confused with Microsoft Teams, they're terrible at naming things. Within that environment, everybody now has access to this tool. And when they go see it, this is what they see.
So, real quick question in the Q&A: would Gates, Dell, Musk, or any other smart men of our time get interviews using this kind of criteria?
Would they get an interview? I'm not sure any of those guys needed an interview, but I think I understand the question. Um, would they get an interview? I would think so. I would think if your qualifications are there and you have a well-written resume, this kind of AI screening would likely get you that interview, because you can go deeper in how you write that scoring matrix, right? You can look for things that don't just pop out on a resume, like personality, writing style, professionalism. You know, we've written systems like that actually analyze the quality of the resume, right? Were there misspellings? How was the grammar? Depending on what that role is. So yeah. And another question I often get around that topic is, well, aren't candidates just doing the same thing on the other side, right? And I would say if they're smart, they should be. And if they're doing it, I might want to hire them because they know how to use these tools. And you need people inside your companies that know how to use these tools. All right, back to the HR chatbot. So now that I have this, I can just ask it any kind of question I want as an employee. How do I accrue PTO? It searches that knowledge and then very quickly gives me an answer in a very friendly way that's incredibly accurate, because it's not using the model anymore. It's using the data and the context that I gave it. You know, what are my vision options? And so we build these systems so that HR isn't being bogged down by answering these things, policies, procedure questions, benefit questions. It's self-serve 24/7, and employees can get the information they want quickly. All right, I'm going to quickly move on to the next example. This example, I just want to show you how it does data analysis. This is a really simple example, but you'll get the point. Basically, it's analyzing foot traffic in a retail environment. And so basically, you're a strategic marketer, bar, restaurant, sportsbook space. You interpret foot traffic to understand patterns of peak visit times and low visit times, and then generate strategies to maximize visits. Tell me more about this. So I'm building my rollout. While it's doing that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it data. So I'm just going to give it an Excel spreadsheet of very simple data. It's just date and how many people came in that day. And then I'm going to give it a prompt, basically saying, I've given you foot traffic for one of your clients who operates a sports book and sports bar in Scottsdale. Look at all this data and give me a good summarization of what you see. So here's my role as it got built out. And now I'm going to ask it to go do its work. So the context is the data here, and the output or the instructions is telling it what I want to do. And so now it's analyzing this, and it's writing code to interpret the data that I gave it. And then so it outputs this, it's understanding the data types. It's basically now getting an understanding of the data. And now it's doing a statistical analysis of the data, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Here's a by month that it's doing. I don't have to look at that. I just like to because I'm a little bit of a nerd. But it's going through the steps of what it's doing to analyze it. And it's important to read this so you understand that you agree with how it's going about its work. You don't have to read the code, but you should read these things. And it'll just keep writing code until it thinks it has the understanding that it needs. So now it created a chart for me. This is daily foot traffic in that data that I gave it, right? So we can look at this in a deeper way. It's showing me average visitors by weekday. And now it's giving me its thoughts on the data as it was there. So here were event spikes. Well, this was Super Bowl weekend, so that's why that happened. Da, 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 da. And then it gives me insights on it. And now this data is in there, I can just chat. Like, what was the highest Tuesday? There you go. So there you go. February 2nd. Should be coming back to me. So the highest traffic Tuesday was Tuesday, February 4th, 520 visitors, 5 days before Super Bowl. There you go. So that's how it's working with data in the background and how it can be good at math. All right. Now I'm going to show you a couple of more advanced uses. This one is sorry, I'm trying to see if I can. I'm hoping you can hear this. So this is an app we built for a company called Thermo King. And the problem they have is they have technicians all around the country who service HVAC systems in trucks and boxes, who have no centralized support. They just have technical manuals. So we built them a system that their technicians could talk to. Hey, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you. How can I assist you with your Thermo King unit today? Please describe the issue you're experiencing.
I'm having problems with a Magnum unit. The compressor's not running.
Got it. You're having an issue with the compressor on a Thermo King Magnum unit not running. Let me search my knowledge for that.
Oh, where is the high pressure cutout switch?
The high pressure cutout switch is typically located on the refrigerant line, close to the compressor.
Could you walk me through replacing that switch?
Absolutely. Let's go through it step by step.
Oh, you know what? I'm Vietnamese now. Could you speak to me in Vietnamese?
Tất nhiên, tôi có thể nói tiếng Việt. Bây giờ, hãy tiến hành bước đầu tiên.
How about in Spanish?
Claro, puedo hablar en español. ¿Lo intentamos de nuevo? ¿Te gustaría que te guíe?
Hopefully you could hear that. So that is a voice interaction that's backed up by a large number of technical manuals that gives technicians information at their fingertips and give them a great way to interact with it. All right, the last thing we're going to look at is an example of those agents that we talked about. And so this is an example of that O3 deep and plus deep research. So reasoning and deep research. So I can't demo this live because this took 20 minutes to put together. But the use case here was we have a cybersecurity client that they're a hardware company, and they went to a board meeting, and one of the board members said, "Why aren't we number one for microsegmentation? We compete really well on that." And the CMO said, "Well, because we don't have budget for that." And then the board member said, "We're going to give you $25,000 a month to do that, but I want it up by Friday," and it was a Monday. So it came to us and said, "Well, can you get a campaign up for us that fast?" And even though Tomorrow Today is not an advertising agency, we said, "Well, we have a term it's called FAFO. It's called F around and find out." Like, I don't know, let's see what we can do. And so on Tuesday, we went to O3 and deep research and had it create a strategy for doing this. I'm not going to read this because we don't have time for it. it came back and asked me some really good questions. Target audience, geographic targeting, ad copy, landing page. We gave it, those are all good questions. We gave it the information that it needed. And then it went and created a very deep strategy, a very thought. This is the kind of documents that O3 and deep research create together. I'm just going to keep scrolling. It's very, very thoughtful. I have citations on it. We read through it, actually agreed with it. And then we said, now we want you to use the ad strategy and create a campaign brief that we can hand to a performance marketing team that will set this up. And the most important one is we want a step-by-step guide to configure the campaign in Google Ads. And then it went and it did that. And then we went to Operator, the other agent. That's the one that I talked about that had a browser that spins up. We gave it the login to their Google Ads environment and that step-by-step guide and said, we want you to go create this campaign. And this is a recording of what it did. And I'll fast forward in this. You can actually watch it walk through creating the campaign. It sees errors, it fixes them. This is not a human navigating this right now. This is AI navigating this. And I think this took about 30 minutes total, but you can literally close the window and come back in later and check on it. But in 30 minutes, it actually created the entire campaign and it was really, really good. We still went through it all and corrected things, but it was really good. And so that's what agents can do for you. All right, we're running low on time, so I'm going to go back to our deck and we'll talk about implementing AI. So this is how we recommend approaching integrating AI into your business. First, that I've shown you a lot of different things, and I could be here for 2 hours showing you more things. There's a lot you can do with it. But getting people to use it is the biggest challenge that you have in front of you. Because in order for people to be using ChatGPT in their work and think about using it first, they have to rethink how work gets done. And so it ends up being a big change management exercise. It involves leadership and vision and trust in leadership and training and reinforcement and collaboration for them to get there. And it's a slow process, but it's incredibly important that you start that today so that a year from now, you're competitive. 2 years from now, you're getting closer to AI native as a company. If you don't start today, you won't get there. Don't forget FAFO. FAFO is how you learn. I learn new uses for this every day, and I've been doing this for 3 years, 2.5 years, I guess, since ChatGPT came out. So don't be afraid to try stuff. It literally costs you nothing. And you're thinking about where to apply it, just the most immediate gains are where there's work that's just tedious, right? That involves typing into a computer, taking 3 spreadsheets and manipulating that data and getting it into one spreadsheet, summarizing meetings. These are all things that AI is really good at today. And if we can get people to be focusing on that, we can free them up to be doing work that's much more strategic. And usually they actually enjoy doing more than the tedious things. And last, I just urge you to locate all your data. Data is locked up in SaaS systems. Make sure you can get it out. Data is going to be your competitive advantage in the future because only you have it. And data is not just structured data in databases or SaaS platforms. It's PDFs, it's photographs, it can be pieces of paper. Start thinking about where that data is and have a long-term strategy for what you're going to do with it. All right, it's noon. I can hang out and answer questions if you guys have any more. But
So I just took mine off, and that's great. Chris will allow you to do that if anybody wants to stay. But what I was going to remind everybody is the first step is today. Today's the first day of the rest of our lives. So if he got you, your thought juices going, reach out to somebody. We'd love to talk to you further about it. We know it takes some, we used to say in the old IBM days, think, but now our little word at QCM, we say noodle. You got to go back and noodle on it. Figure out how you'd like to use it in your organization, play. And we don't want you to have to spend a lot of time doing it. So if we can help you shorten that process, please reach out. But I'll let you watch. You got one up in the Q&A, Chris, and I'll turn it over to you.
yeah, to build on that, I like to tell people today is the worst version of AI you will ever use. The space moves fast. It becomes way more capable. So if you doesn't do something for you today, check back in a couple months. It might. All right, the question that we got was, does all the data need to be loaded into ChatGPT, or can it interact with private company data through other applications APIs for an on-premise and cloud SaaS solutions? So You can just give it data, right? In the ways that I showed you. You can build systems that integrate with that data. That's a lot of the work that we do. So we basically create an integration with a Salesforce that pulls the information out that we need, allows AI to do work with that, and then push that information after it's been manipulated and reviewed by a person back into Salesforce. You also have the ability to build chatbots that directly query that data by using that integration point. They're called MCP servers. It's kind of the new paradigm for how AI interacts with systems. And the cool thing is that once you build that integration, then you can leverage that in other automations because you only have to build that integration once. And now you can start creating automations that leverages that same integration. And then last, ChatGPT did start releasing what they're calling connectors, which allow you to directly connect to something like a Salesforce or HubSpot or your Outlook calendar directly from within ChatGPT. The use cases are pretty limited right now, but I would expect over this next year, those kind of integrations will start to appear more and more where you can actually connect other accounts directly within ChatGPT. Any other questions? All right, Tim, I think we're done.
Oops, forgot to take it off. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it, team. We'll look forward to it. Reach out to your QCM rep for the follow-up of the recorded version and/or any follow-up meetings. Thanks again, Chris, for your time. Great work.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
All right.
Take care, everybody.